The Bible is a complex and multifaceted text that has been interpreted and reinterpreted throughout history. However, when it comes to mainstream media, the true lessons of the Bible are often lost in translation. Mainstream media outlets, driven by ratings and advertising revenue, tend to focus on sensationalized and attention-grabbing stories, rather than providing in-depth and nuanced explorations of the Bible's teachings. One of the primary reasons why mainstream media fails to convey the true lessons of the Bible is that it often relies on soundbites and headlines rather than substance. News outlets and talk shows frequently cherry-pick isolated verses or passages to support a particular agenda or narrative, without providing context or exploring the underlying themes and messages. This approach can be misleading and reductionist, reducing the richness and depth of the Bible to simplistic and superficial soundbites. Furthermore, mainstream media often approaches the Bible from a purely secular or worldly perspective, neglecting the spiritual and theological dimensions that are at the heart of the text. The Bible is not just a historical or literary document, but a sacred scripture that is meant to be understood and interpreted within a spiritual framework. However, mainstream media outlets often ignore or downplay this dimension, instead focusing on the political, social, or cultural implications of the Bible's teachings. Another issue with mainstream media's coverage of the Bible is that it often relies on experts or pundits who may not have a deep understanding of the text or its historical and cultural context. These individuals may be more interested in promoting their own agendas or ideologies than in providing a genuine and nuanced understanding of the Bible's teachings. As a result, viewers and readers are often presented with a distorted or incomplete picture of the Bible, which can be confusing and misleading. In addition, mainstream media's obsession with controversy and conflict can also lead to a distorted understanding of the Bible. News outlets and talk shows often focus on the most divisive and contentious issues, such as debates over scriptural theology, rather than exploring the core teachings and values of the Bible. This can create a false impression that the Bible is primarily a source of conflict and division, rather than a source of wisdom, guidance, and inspiration. Moreover, mainstream media's 24-hour news cycle and social media platforms can also contribute to a superficial and fleeting understanding of the Bible. In an era where information is readily available and constantly streaming, it can be difficult to slow down and engage in a deeper and more meaningful exploration of the text. The constant barrage of news and information can lead to a kind of Bible fatigue, where people become desensitized to the deeper messages and themes of the text. Finally, it is also worth noting that mainstream media's coverage of the Bible is often influenced by a broader cultural and societal agenda. In an increasingly secular and pluralistic society, the Bible is often seen as a relic of a bygone era, or a symbol of outdated and oppressive values. As a result, mainstream media outlets may be hesitant to engage with the Bible in a genuine and respectful manner, instead opting for a more superficial or dismissive approach. In conclusion, the true lessons of the Bible are unlikely to be learned from mainstream media, which often prioritizes sensationalism and controversy over substance and depth. To truly understand the Bible, one must engage with the text in a more nuanced and thoughtful way, taking into account its historical and cultural context, as well as its spiritual and theological dimensions. This requires a willingness to slow down, reflect, and engage with the text in a more meaningful and intentional way, rather than relying on the superficial and fleeting representations of the Bible that are often presented in mainstream media.